Hello, and welcome back to another bonus episode of Fan Behavior and F1 podcast. I am Zoe, and I'm here with Hannah.
Hello.
I should have actually said an F1 and IndyCar podcast.
So true.
Because today we are recapping our IndyCar experience, our very first IndyCar race. We had a wonderful time.
We did.
It did break me. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I've been sick this past week.
Oh, I could kind of tell in your voice memos that you had a little congestion.
Yeah. I have not been feeling well this entire week. Actually, today is the first day that I actually feel pretty good. But I was having a cough. I had just typical cold symptoms. And it's because it was a very, what's the word? Like, not intense is the wrong word, but it was like a go
Oh, yeah.
weekend.
We didn't stop.
I am not a go girl.
Well, and it's hard because, you want to commit to the moment. And typically the moments that we have are few and far between in a good way. It's like we have a dinner at 5 and then go home.
Yeah.
Or, go home, like goes to someone else's house and watch YouTube.
Right. Well, and like, who was I saying this to? Or maybe I can't remember who I was saying this to, but I am someone, if I'm gonna have like a night out, like a late night, and I know that my sleep's gonna be wrecked and I'm gonna feel kind of shitty and whatever, I am mentally preparing for it the week in advance. I know that the next day following that, I have the whole day to just be on the couch, whatever. But you can't do that,
correct,
in the environment that we were in, and so I think we all handled it differently, right? And I knew that in order for me to just survive, literally survive, not just thrive, but survive, I had to just find my ways to get through it, because otherwise, as we've talked about before on this podcast, like, I am not a very enjoyable person to be around when I am cold, hungry, hungover, or tired.
Correct.
And so I really had to sort of pick my poison.
Yeah.
Because
you did well.
I try my best. I did. And clearly, I mean, I'm paying the price. But if all four things were going to happen for me, it would have been.
Well, it certainly wasn't cold.
It wasn't cold. It wasn't cold. So then I had to, find my other ways to get through.
Yeah. And we did find a lot of space for rest.
We did.
Just like sitting.
We did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was crucial.
It was crucial. But you're the leader of this episode.
Yeah.
So you take us through everything we need to talk about.
All right. So we're just going to kind of go through the recap of the whole weekend, and just share some of the fun stories. And then Zoe asked, did a question box on Instagram about your questions about, IndyCar. And the majority of people are just like, WTF, I need to know everything about IndyCar because I don't really know. So we're going to do a very quick, I don't know if it's quick. We don't do a lot of things quickly, but a 101 segment sort of at the end, just kind of talking about the differences, or like the very obvious differences between F1 and IndyCar. So we flew into Nashville on Thursday.
Yes.
And it was very smooth.
Yes.
And that's important to remember because, as most of you know, the way home wasn't smooth, but we'll get there eventually. So we went and we were sharing an Airbnb.
Well, smooth aside from the man who threw up on the plane that you witnessed.
Oh, I forgot. Okay, you guys, this was horrible. So luckily it was on our shortest flight. So we were flying from Atlanta to Nashville, which was 40 minutes. And there's this guy, this group of guys that are sitting, but it seems like they're with a dad. So I can't tell if they are of age or not of age. And they didn't really seem rowdy when they got on the plane. So whatever. So anyway, we're starting to take off. We're flying down the runway. And all of a sudden I hear what honest to God sounds like a drink that's over fizzing. Like he opened a soda or something and it was bubbling out. And then it started to smell like beer. And I was like, okay, you are definitely not allowed to drink your own alcohol on flights. I don't know how, but so maybe it's a can of beer, whatever. And then I realized, then all of a sudden, because he's a row ahead of me, but in the adjacent aisle. So I can see sort of everything that's going on. Thank God he was in front of me in front of me and I not behind me. Because I realize he's throwing up. And this girl in his row, who I don't think he's with, takes out, she has a shopping bag maybe from in the airport or something and throws it to him. And he starts continuing to throw up. And I don't do well with vomit. I'm a sympathy. I have sympathy vomited in the past. The smell is horrible. And I also realized that he projectile vomited. Like, it's on the ground, it's on the seat in front of him, and the woman in front of him. It's horrible. And the beer smell starts to very quickly smell like puke. And it was awful. He only threw up the once. All of his buddies are obviously laughing. They never told a flight attendant, which at one point there was a group of flight attendants who were standing right by them and standing on it. And I assumed that they were being briefed on the situation, but they were not. But that was pretty overwhelming to deal with.
Yeah.
And Zoe and I were not in the same row. She was,
I was a row behind you.
yeah, a row behind me, adjacent. So I could see her, but I'm not a great flyer. Zoe's even if she doesn't like it, she's very chill with the whole. So she's like eyes closed, music on. I'm just doing everything I can not to focus on the smell of vomit, which I'm really glad.
No idea.
But yeah, that was pretty horrible. But then we got to the Airbnb where we were staying, which was also a journey because I put in the wrong address to the Lyft driver, which was too bad because he basically took us like over by, I think I put in whatever avenue south instead of north or something like that, which makes a big difference. And then I felt like an idiot, and the driver's like, "Are you sure there's no apartments over here?" And I was like, "Pretty sure," and I wasn't. So we get there. We stayed with Michaela, she loves F1, as many of you know. Molly, who is a bunch of red flags, and then Lizzie, who is Pit Lane Lizzie, and was also on our podcast a few weeks ago. And yeah, it was a grand old time. We showed up, hugs, chatted for a bit, and we were like, okay, we're all going to bed because this weekend is going to be a long one.
Yes.
So Friday we wake up and we recorded our podcast episode with Molly and Michaela. I don't know, has that, by the time we're talking, this comes out, has this already come out? Okay. So as you know, it was a fantastic episode. I learned all about Interlagos, which was humbling, but you know what? It's good. It's good that even I'm a, creator, we podcast, and I'm still learning new things every day. It's all fine.
Yes.
We went to brunch at this place called Hampton Social, which was great. I've never been to Nashville. You hadn't either.
No.
And it really is the bachelorette party paradise of the
100%.
I mean, everywhere we went, it was crawling with bachelorette parties. Some very nice, some very irritating. I hope they all had a wonderful, lovely time. So many matching outfits.
Which Hannah and I are not really like matching outfit girls.
No, I'm up for a coordination.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we love a coordinating a Mary-Kate and Ashley moment, but one's in pink, one's in blue.
Yeah,
like there's a difference to every outfit.
Yeah,
but it all goes together.
Yeah.
So
and like to each their own. Like it's just for us, it was hard to watch.
Yes, exactly.
Because also everyone has different taste. Yep. The taste that these, like the groups of girls that we saw, are very different than the taste of us. And so it was just kind of hard to watch. But one of the perks of the restaurant that we chose is that all of a sudden we see this guy come in, and we kind of talked about this already, but I want to give you the full story. So this guy comes in, sunglasses, denim jacket, collar pulled up. And I thought, and I won't remember the actor's name, but I thought it was the dad, Sarah Cameron's dad from Outer Banks, and then the character from Nashville. And so my back is to him. Molly and Zoe are facing him, and they also realize he's someone. So they're kind of looking it up. And all I hear them say is Nashville. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, right, okay, that's the guy from Nashville. Cool. Like, that's cool, but like doesn't really do a lot for me. And then I think I get up to go to the bathroom maybe. Or at some point, which is not unusual, but at some point I realize that it is Ryder Strong, who is Sean Hunter in Boy Meets World. And if you haven't seen Boy Meets World, that's really unfortunate. But Sean Hunter was the love of my life for my entire childhood. And when I realized it was him, so I was like, I know, that's why I didn't understand why you weren't freaking out. Yeah, like I couldn't figure out.
I were like looking it up on, because we were like, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Ryder Strong. And we were looking up his Instagram, and we found an Instagram post where he was wearing the jacket that he had on at the restaurant. And so I thought that we had said to you, like, that's Sean Hunter, that's Ryder Strong. And you just were like, you kind of had this unfazed look. And I know that, you, that you love him. So I was like, that's kind of interesting, but maybe she's just playing it cool, like whatever. And then when you found out, I was like, I wasn't playing okay. Cool. She didn't even know that it was him.
No, because when you were like, that's because I think you started to tell me, and I was like, I know.
Yes.
Because you had said Nashville, and I thought it looked like that guy. So I was just like, it's the guy from Nashville. Who cares? But it was weird because I did recognize the woman too, but I knew it was that guy's wife. But anyway, it wasn't like really tracking for me. And then anyway, I figured out it's Sean Hunter and I really started to freak out. And I did the thing, which is like so obvious, but I was like, because my back was him and honestly, the chair I was in, like my back hurt. So I like kind of started to turn to crack my back and we made eye contact and I was like, oh, I've been found out. And Zoe was like, do you want to, or it was either you or Molly was like, should we do the thing where we take a picture of the table and really, and I'm like, no, because he definitely knows we know who he is. And I don't want to, he's with his family. Like, I don't want to be that person. But we go and take a picture before we all leave. And at one point I make direct eye contact with him and I felt it all the way in my soul. And that was enough for me. I think if he was with because he was there, they did a live show for the Boy Meets World podcast that he does with Danielle Fisher and that's her name, right?
I think so.
And Will Friedle.
Okay.
And they were staying, I think, at the hotel next door. So if he was like with them or if he was with like buddies or something, I feel like I would have maybe gone up and either said something at least or asked for a picture. But since he was with his wife and son, I'm like, no, you don't need this right now. So that was amazing. And I didn't stop talking about it for quite some time, which is pretty standard for me. And I did keep apologizing that I kept talking about it, but it was a big moment. I mean, all of the things that had to happen for us to be at that restaurant with Sean Hunter.
I know, it's crazy.
Bonkers. So then we went to the track to get our media credentials. We were lucky enough to get media credentials for this event, which was very cool. And I was trying to remember, we just kind of walked around the paddock a little bit, saw some of the drivers. The credential that we had, unless we had a specified time to like interview drivers, you're not really allowed to like just go up to them and ask for photos or interviews or anything like that. So unfortunately, we had an opportunity to go to like a bullpen area and talk to some of the drivers, but we already had something going on during that time, which was fine. So we don't have any like quote unquote driver content, but we did get to see a lot of the drivers in the paddock, which was cool. And what's interesting about IndyCar, and I don't know if it's, to be fair, I'm so new still, I don't know if it's particular like specific to the Nashville race, but the garages are not on like pit lane. So the cars have to come out of the garage and like go through the paddock basically in order to get to the pit lane for practice, qualifying, race, etc. So you do get to get really close up to the actual cars, which is cool and definitely something that you don't get in F1 unless you have pretty high level access. So that was cool. Yeah. And just being able to kind of just get to watch everybody. Like you can kind of just stand outside the garage and like watch everybody work. I don't know. It's just interesting. Yeah. And then we wanted to go find the media center because that was just kind of like a hub where they had like if we wanted to just kind of take a break from being outside, we didn't have like seats to watch. So that's kind of where we could go inside and watch the race. Get food, which was crucial. It took us forever to find it. Everyone, I cannot get over how kind the staff was, how helpful everybody was, but literally no one knew where this place was, including us. And we had it. Every time I asked someone, they went to look at the map and I said, I have checked the map. It is not on the map. So I do not know. And I don't know, what do you think? Like an hour?
An hour.
Yeah. I mean, at least. And so if you've seen the Sublime TikTok that we made, which is incredible, I definitely recommend checking it out. You'll see I have a cookie and a water bottle in hand and I say Sublime. And that is the moment in which we found the media center. And it was just, we were all very elated.
So happy.
So excited. And so then after that, I think we watched practice for a little while, but we were just like, okay, it was really hot. And we were staying close enough that we could walk pretty easily. It was probably like 15, 20 minutes to walk back to our Airbnb, but it was nice. There wasn't a ton of traffic, but it was just nice not to have to deal with Ubering and stuff. Yeah. So we had a dinner reservation that night. And so we went out, we decided to just go back and chill and shower and change and all of that good stuff.
Yep.
Went to dinner, which was lovely. And there was a very nice man who had a real attitude problem. And we
got through it.
We moved tables and it was delightful. After it wasn't delightful. And then we decided to take on Broadway.
Yes.
We've lived in New York.
Yes.
We've taken friends to Times Square because you don't go there when you just live there. You only go when your friends are visiting. I've done a lot of chaotic things. I genuinely haven't experienced anything like Broadway, and it is a lot.
It's so much. I think like I am an introvert through and through, very much so. And I get very easily overstimulated. And like when I have to be around a lot of people at like, it's like immediately draining for my emotional, physical state. It's hard for me to stay like in a upbeat headspace when I'm just like having to constantly deal with lines and people and drunk people and pushing. And it's like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And Broadway is that on crack.
Literally. It really, I was expecting like it to be crowded but I was picturing more like 6th Street in Austin, not this.
No,
I mean, this was insane. And the lines were crazy. Right. It was just not for us. And at one point, I think we had talked about, I can't remember how it came up, but we were talking about how fun we had at the TG1F meetup in Austin last year and how fun it was dancing on the bar. We had a really good time. And also we had the touch tunes there. So we were trying to find, because for anyone who doesn't know, touch tunes is a digital jukebox that you can pay for credits and like play the music you want to play and even like fast track them so that they're in like the next song played. And the whole group did that really well when we were in Austin. And so I don't know who figured it out, but we realized that there's a Coyote Ugly in Nashville, and there was a few people at our table who had not had the experience of dancing on a bar, and I made it my mission that we weren't leaving Nashville without doing that. So we went to Coyote Ugly. That's where those bar top photos came from.
Yep.
It was so much fun.
Always a good time.
Very good.
I was also wearing a skirt that I didn't have any shorts on.
Oh, right.
And so I was just like very conscious of like, you know, and I always think it's so like, you know, when you're at that kind of bar, that kind of space, and I see guys, I'm just like, what are you doing here? Like, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
Like, go
because it was majority women.
It was.
And then there's like this, so it's like obviously the bar, then there's like a section of people who stand, and then there's like this railing with another kind of like walkway behind it. And most of the guys were just kind of lined up back there, and it was really
weird.
Gross.
But even more so the guys that were sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, please move away.
Yeah.
Like, because I was like, I need to get off this bar, but I'm obviously not going to get off of it like near them. Cause like, what if I flash somebody or whatever? I don't know. I just, this isn't for you. Not your space.
Yeah, no. So anyway, then we left there when everyone was, had their fill of dancing on the bar. And then we went to another spot. I really wanted to ride a mechanical bull. So we went to this spot that our server at the restaurant had recommended and immediately walked in and the vibe,
it was
not it. It was crowded. It was incredibly crowded. And it was also a karaoke bar, which I feel like are very hit and miss. In this particular situation, we walked in on someone who was missing at karaoke. And so it wasn't, because I feel like a lot of karaoke bars in Austin and Nashville, it's like actual performers who are kind of using the karaoke night as an opportunity to either sing covers or sing their own songs. This woman was simply karaokeing and she was having a blast. But then anyway, we left that and went to another like very quiet bar.
It was like a jazz bar.
Yeah, almost. To finish the evening, and that was nice. Yeah, anything I'm missing from Friday?
Well, so then when we got back home, you immediately went into bed. I honestly thought Hannah disappeared because she was hiding underneath the covers. I couldn't even see her. And then I was like, I got really close and I was like, oh, okay, she's underneath there. Okay, good. She's in bed. But when I was
I was asleep for this part.
When I was taking out my contacts and like washing my face and stuff to go to bed, I got one of my contacts out and I could not get my other contact out. And I had like touched my eye and it had kind of like burned, and because I think I had put on my moisturizer and I forgot to wash my hands. And so I couldn't get it out. And I have daily contacts, so I don't have any contact solution, anything like that. So I went to Molly, who does have contacts, and she gave me her solution. I tried to get it out that night and I couldn't. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go to bed and I'll wake up in the morning and I'll see if I can get it out. Cause like then my eye got really irritated that night. And I was like, this is just getting worse and worse. Let me just try to sleep and then wake up in the morning and try to get it out. So that's what I tried. So then we get to Saturday morning and I wake up and I still can't get it out.
And your eye is so red.
My eye is so red. And I'm like, fuck. And I have nothing else to get it out with. And, you know, and in these types of moments, you're just kind of like, there's no one can help you.
Right, of course.
Because it's something with your eye. I mean, unless they want to dig in there and try to get it out themselves. It's just not gonna happen. So I had to walk, and it was not a close Walgreens. Let me tell you that. It was probably about 25 minutes away. Walked to the Walgreens. It started to rain. Pick up some basically artificial tears, lubrication that you can put in to basically dislodge or contact. Make it back, and
you reliving it is you're just like
and finally was able to get it out of my eye.
Now, at any point, were you panicking or were you just annoyed? Because I would have panicked, I think.
I wasn't panicked because it's okay, I can it's not like anything. I mean, obviously if you have a contact in your eye for too long, you can develop an eye infection. And what was also funny was we had joked the day previously about wearing an eye patch on our podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe we should still do it. And I was like, I'm gonna have to wear an eye patch the whole rest of this weekend.
Yeah.
And I knew eventually it would come out, or we'd go someplace and someone would take it out.
Yeah.
It was more of just the inconvenience
yeah.
of, well, it's a Saturday, so all eye doctors and places are closed.
Right.
We have this other stuff we have to do. I'm not at my home where I can go myself or drive myself. Well, I shouldn't have driven, obviously, because I couldn't see. It just was inconvenient.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing. But I feel in those types of situations, I'm pretty I'm just it's going to be what it's going to be, and I'll figure it out.
Yeah. You were very obviously relaxed about it when you were at the Airbnb. So I just wasn't sure if on your journey to Walgreens, you at any point were like, oh my God, I'm never going to get this out of my eye.
No,
because I sort of spiral like that.
No, I didn't feel that. It was more of just this is really fucking annoying to have to deal with. And I don't love that I'm having to trudge to Walgreens on a Saturday morning when it's raining and deal with all of this when I'm again tired and not my best self.
Yeah.
But crisis averted. We got it out. So all good things.
And we decided to have breakfast at home that day.
Yes, you made me a nice breakfast.
Well, because I didn't need her to be annoyed and hangry.
Exactly. These are the things we have to avoid.
And I was bummed because I thought you were closer to home than you were. So I finished.
Well, I did peel
breakfast.
Off to get coffee.
But I finished making breakfast way before you got home, and I was like, "Sorry, I can make it again if you want some."
Right. I appreciate it,
of course. And as Zoe mentioned in her contact story, it was rainy.
Yeah, rainy day.
Rainy Saturday, and we love a wet quali. But we didn't. IndyCar doesn't, and I respect it. I think a lot of and we're not going to dive into it a ton, but a lot of what the way that IndyCar handles safety is different than how F1 handles safety. I'm not saying one's better or worse. I'm just saying I think at some point F1 would have just gone where IndyCar decided to hold off, which was fine. So we got there. We knew there was a delay with practice and that there was going to be a delay in qualifying.
Yeah. So the way that IndyCar does on Saturday, they do practice in the morning, which is their version of FP2. Then they do qualifying, and then they do another practice following qualifying, which is very interesting, which I kind of like because it's you get yourself another practice after you've already had the qualifying. So you can kind of practice your strategy for the race knowing your position, which I think is kind of interesting. But they basically just axed their final practice and just pushed qualifying into that space.
Yeah. And so we just ended up being there a lot longer than we had planned, which was not a bad thing. It was just, again, knowing us, even I'm a little bit more extroverted than Zoe in some situations, but I also definitely need a rest moment. And I didn't, we love everyone we were traveling with, but I also this was the first time we were all traveling together. So I was trying to I didn't want to, upset, just be a bitch basically. And sometimes I can get that way when I'm tired or grouchy. So this was the day that we created our first High School Musical masterpiece. Loved it. Zoe is a much she is just so perfect for these sorts of things. I really did my best.
Which
I feel
funny because as you just said, you're definitely more extroverted than me, but for some reason when it comes to online content, I become the extroverted, I just will do anything anywhere. And you're much more like,
I get nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I'll do it. I just like need a plan. And I think the other thing is this is the like me not wanting to not do things well or not like look like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I hate like Zoe's so good at getting things on the first take. And part of that is because she does this stuff a lot. And like sometimes it takes me more than one time. And I worry that and she doesn't, but I worry that she's going to like get annoyed with me or be like, can someone else do this part? Or she's never done that. There's literally no track record for that being what happens. But, you know, we all have our things.
Were you a like performer as a kid?
Yes, which is why it's weird.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say because like I like loved to like put on shows and
yeah, we always did like when we were at dinners with like multiple families, we like would plan a show and like I would. But the thing is, actually, now that I think about it, like I was in charge of the show. Like I was the director and I made the tickets that we handed to the parents to bring to the basement to be allowed in. So
you weren't the star of the
no, but I was an attention whore, like, you know, in the way that I was like, you know, I had to announce everything or like talk about it. So it is kind of weird that I get so nervous about it now. But I think like with the High School Musical one, I knew everything like the back of my hand because I've been singing that song for a decade. So like that helps.
Yes. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, so then we just kind of walked around some more. One thing that's also interesting is like at one point we saw the facilities are just different than they are, at least in Nashville. I can't speak to other races. They're just different than at F1. So at one point there's like this crowd of people outside a bunch of porta potties and I'm not really like understanding. I think this was on Saturday. I'm not really understanding why they're all gathered there. And then all of a sudden Pato just walks out of one and I was like, guys, you're waiting outside the bathroom for him. That's weird. But I also was just like, why is Pato using a porta potty?
Well, do you remember? Oh, this may have been on Sunday, so I may have been like skipping ahead. But when we were filming in front of Alex Pillow's big sort of like flag thing, and then Joseph Newgarden just like walks by, and I'm like, I can't really film you right now.
Yeah, that was the lifeguards imported
from Spain,
and I glitched. He is quite the specimen.
Yeah.
And we saw him a couple times.
We did. Yeah. We saw him on Saturday.
Yeah.
Kayla said, good luck.
Yes.
Joseph.
Yeah. So that was really fun. We met some people. We met Shai, who's one of the photographers for Alfa Romeo, or maybe the only, I don't know. I don't know all those details, but he's a delight.
Yeah. So nice.
We met Tamarcus, who does social media and PR for Romain Grosjean. Mm-hmm. Also a delight. Mm-hmm. So it's fun to get to meet some new people.
We met Katie, who works social media for IndyCar.
Yes, she's who we got to talk to about getting our credentials. She was really sweet. It was nice to see, like, I think what's interesting is you talk about like women in motorsport, and I'm not saying there's enough, but there are a lot. It's just they're in roles you don't necessarily, they're not the ones on camera, right? And so
oftentimes they're in like the creative roles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like the McLaren, we also on Sunday, well, we we didn't really meet her, but the McLaren admin.
Yeah, Crystal.
Admin, yeah. And
she's awesome.
She's awesome. And if you've seen any of Aero McLaren's TikTok content, like they are incredibly good on TikTok and so good. And like, that's because of her.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she works with another girl too, but they're the ones behind the scenes, like doing it all, doing the stuff that doesn't always get recognized.
Yeah. And like the hospitality stuff and, you know, there's just a lot going on. So that was really nice to see. We did see a lot of drivers. We saw Marcus Armstrong. We did see Marcus Ericsson. He made a cameo in TikTok. That
story. So Michaela had this idea for doing this trend. It's the trend. If you've seen it, it's on her TikTok, but it's to
Dog days.
Dog days are over. Yeah, Florence and the Machine. And basically you just like do this thing and then you run fast. That's basically it.
Yeah.
And we found this like open path on the track because the track was open. And, you know, it took us a couple tries. All of a sudden, well, for us, you were.
Well, part of it too is like, because it's so loud in certain points, like it's getting that one too, you really have to start right on the beat.
Yeah.
And it was, I think at some points you guys weren't starting right on the beat, but at some points I wasn't cueing you correctly, which also stresses me out. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But
it worked out. But so all of a sudden we see Marcus Ericsson like walking like behind Hannah, because Hannah's the one filming and we're in front of her. And then he starts to walk past us and we're like, oh my God, let's just get it now. Because if we can get this, he'll be in our TikTok, like as if we're running after him.
Yeah.
And we did, and we nailed it, and it was great.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
So Chinese farmer, if we would have gotten it on the first time, Marcus
Totally.
wouldn't have been in it.
Yep. Marcus Armstrong too. We saw him.
Yeah. Joseph Newgarden, Pato, Christian Lundgaard.
Mhm.
We saw Felix.
Quest.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
I saw Roman on Sunday. I don't know if I saw him on Saturday.
No, we saw him on Sunday. And
trying to think of who else we saw.
I'm not gonna remember. Augustin. He drives the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his first name. Is his first name Augustin? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. We saw Callum Ilott.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember who else.
I know.
But I
feel like I saw Rossi, Alexander Rossi. Yeah. I feel like I saw him at one point.
I mean, we were basically around the McLaren garage quite a bit.
Yeah.
I can't remember who else we may have seen, but yeah, a good amount of people.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. I feel like we saw Alex Palou at one point too.
Yeah, we did.
So that was great. We did see. Well, I've coined him Insurance James, but James from Screaming Meals. So that was fun.
With a cowboy hat on.
He was killing the cowboy hat. And that was really all. Oh, so then we went and watched so we went and watched a little bit of qualifying. Did we go in the media center to watch qualifying at all that day? Okay. So we watched a little bit and then we decided to go back to the Airbnb again to finish watching it and to give us all time to kind of shower, get ready, hang out, which was crucial really. And I felt grateful to be able to do that.
Yes.
So we went to dinner that night and then we went to, by recommendation from, we met her too, and I'm not gonna remember what her name is, but we went to this place called Layer Cake, which was fantastic.
Well, it started out a little bit aggressive. We were sure unsure initially, and then became very, very fun.
Yeah. So it's a bar basically that has, I think, 4 different layers, and each level is a different vibe. So there's a restaurant on the ground floor. Then I think there's more of a cocktail bar kind of chill spot. And so maybe it's only 3 levels. I feel like there's one more that I don't remember. And then there's this rooftop club bar, basically.
Yeah.
And so that's where we went. And we walk in and immediately the DJ is very understanding of the vibe that, we were looking for. Yeah. I guess we stumbled into the vibe we wanted because he created it. But the music was great. We knew that this was going to be the right spot to be in. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he decides that it's the perfect moment to test his fog machines. Or whatever they're called. But it was very scary. It blows a lot of wind. There's fog and it's a little cold, which did feel nice.
It felt nice.
But it was
intense.
Really intense. And we all kind of, screamed, which is the reason he did it when he did, because he thinks it's funny and that's fine. I mean, it's an isolated activity, so you might as well get some entertainment. Yeah. And then everyone was a little bit on edge for him to do it again. Yes. And at one point he does do it again for a very extended amount. Can't see anyone in front. It's like spray, on a wet race. Couldn't see anyone in front of me. It went on for quite some time. And I literally just sat there
I know.
Hand over my eye. I was just like, is it over?
Yeah. It's enough slices.
Yes. Way too many slices. But it was fun. We ended up sort of migrating to a corner of the rooftop that we were not going to be victimized by the fog machines, and we just had some space. And when I get into a certain headspace, there's a few songs that I feel are really crucial to hear. And I just, a lot of DJs are very specific about the songs that they're playing, and that's fine. It's their set list. I totally get it. But I thought, why not try? So I went up to the DJ and I asked if he would be willing to play this song. And he's like, it's called Do It by Micah Montana. It's very random. I used to play at a bar that I went to in college a lot. So I just thought everybody knew it. But a lot of DJs look at me like, what is that? And he was like, if I have it, I'll do it. And I was like, great. No pun intended. And a few songs later, he did it. And I know I was very excited about it. And so I hope others were too, but that was fun. And then if anyone has seen the sign, there's a picture of me holding up a sign on my phone that says play No Hands, please. No Hands is another one that I find to be really important on a night out.
It's great.
And I went back up to him and he was like, oh, it's already on the set list. And I was like, excellent. Hopefully we don't go home before then. We did not. So that was good. Anyway, lots of fun.
Very
probably wouldn't have worn that dress if I knew that's the bar we were going to end up in, but
we had no idea.
No, we were on our Mary Kay and Ashley vibe.
We were.
Actually too, we were the dinner place we went to, we were supposed to be like outside on the roof, but a lot of this like crazy thunderstorm rolled in, and there was a lot of lightning, and we were nervous that it was just going to be like gross and rainy all night, but luckily it went away.
Good. Yeah, it was very, very fun.
Yeah.
But another late night. I don't think we got to bed till like 2:00 in the morning.
Which is also hard because Saturday we knew we were going to be getting a later start just because we could, but we knew that Sunday, I mean, the race, I think, I don't know why, but usually the races are a little later in the afternoon. So we kind of went in all weekend thinking that the race was at 1:30. It was at 11:30, which obviously creates quite a different morning. So we got up, we rallied, we got to the track early.
Yep.
We were unplanned coordinating McLaren colors.
We were,
which was fun. I had my orange pants, you had your cool blue tank, and we saw Zak Brown.
We did many times.
And he has quite the power stance. And we did our first grid walk ever.
That was really fun.
That was really cool, really fun.
It was hotter than hell.
Very, very warm. But it was just a really cool experience. I think we posted about it, but I think some of our listeners saw us on TV, which was cool. Or on, Peacock. I don't even know if it's on like actual TV, but that was fun.
Show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was cool. It was cool to see it. Also, for those who maybe saw it, Tyler Cameron was there at some point.
From The Bachelor.
Bachelorette. I had my eyes peeled. He's a really hard person to miss, I have to imagine.
Yeah.
We never saw him, but I did walk past the guy he was there with. So I took that to assume that he maybe either we just never crossed paths or he passed on the grid walk to try and not be swarmed by people.
Yes.
There was also, what was his name? The comedian from TikTok. It doesn't matter, but he was there. I did confirm that that's who was there.
Oh, okay.
That's gonna bug me that I don't remember his name, but that's okay because
it doesn't matter.
So yeah, Zak Brown. We did walk right past him,
and he was meeting someone. He's meeting his neighbor's friend.
When I tell you, the men that went feral for Zak Brown was so funny. Like, he just could not get away from the like, Zak Brown, good to meet you. Like, hey, I know your neighbors and da da da. It's like, respectfully, look, I've done stuff like this too, right? Like, when we met Ben Higgins, I was just like,
Peter Krause.
Peter Krause was worse. Anyway, that's a totally different story for a different time. But I've been like that. You want to try, and if you have a mutual connection, it's nice to lay the groundwork of that, because then maybe you'll become friends or something. Yeah. That's how we all do it in our brains.
Yeah.
Or like Paul Rudd,
exactly.
Rock Chalk.
Exactly.
And anyway, Zak didn't care that this man was neighbors with people that honestly Zak Brown knows, but probably forgot who they were. That's the vibe I got, at least. And we just stood there ignoring him and walked away. Now he doesn't know we ignored him, but we do. And that feels good. But I hope he had a nice time.
He didn't, I don't think
so. So then we went to really after the grid walk, we went back to the media center to watch.
Had some food.
Yeah, had some food. Honestly, they really came in clutch. The people working in that room were so wonderful. So we went there, watched the race, and then we left a little bit early so we could get to the Victory Lane area. Unfortunately, we got to Victory Lane a little bit late, so we didn't have a great view. It was very hard to see what was going on, but still a lot of energy, and that was exciting.
Yep.
And go Kyle Kirk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kirkwood? Mm-hmm. Kyle Kirkwood. I'm learning. And Kyle Kirk. Goodness. And we met some listeners, which was really fun.
We met quite a few listeners.
Yeah, that was really exciting.
There were those who came up to us.
And
talked to us.
Everyone was so sweet.
Very, very nice.
Yeah, it was cool. It was just interesting because obviously we knew like the group that we traveled with were going, but we really didn't know how like that we were gonna see all these other people.
We also met finally the Girls Just Want to F1 podcast.
Yeah,
it was really fun.
Yeah,
to hang out with them and talk to them. Yeah, there were just a lot of people there that I mean, we decided to go. But then we didn't realize how many other people decided to go too.
Yeah.
And so it was just cool to connect with people that we didn't even know we were going to get a chance to meet.
I know. Yeah, it was awesome. So then that night we did dinner again. At this point, we're all feeling it. We're still rallying, but we're feeling it. And we had great dinner, and then we went, I'm not going to remember what it was called.
We went to Jason Aldean's bar.
Jason Aldean's first, yes. And we met Zoe, who is from Zoe E-Racing. She races stadium super trucks, which are also fondly known as the jumpy trucks. She drives the pink one. She was so sweet.
Yeah, she's the best. I'm sure people know because she's
Yes.
she's got a good TikTok following and
Yeah.
following. But yeah, super, super nice.
Yeah, she was really sweet. And while we were there, we also saw Insurance James and Marcus Armstrong. So that was fun. We just were, happy to all be in the same room. We didn't really interact with them. And then Shy was there and some other people. Sarah, yes. I was gonna.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Because Sarah went to dinner with us too from Grid Click, and then we've also, who I haven't talked about, but we also met Freya, who is one of the co-hosts of the Lakeside Drive podcast. She's a delightful human. I mean, everyone we met was wonderful.
Everyone was great.
But I could listen to her talk for hours. She's originally from Australia and just very soothing to listen to.
Yeah, super nice.
So we had fun there. The DJ,
he
was off. The problem was he had song ADD, which I understand the need to switch it up. Like, we don't want to hear 7 minutes of, not that he played this, but like when the cha-cha slide plays, God forbid, there's a moment in time where it needs to end immediately.
Yeah.
It's about 3 minutes, is 3.5 is as max as you should go.
Right.
He changed songs after, like right as it was like before the best part of the song, he would change it.
He didn't let anything
like
breathe.
DJ Khaled. Do you remember when DJ Khaled opened for Demi Lovato?
Yes.
You guys, it's like the best part of the song starts playing. He's like, "We the best," and he changes the song, and it's just like, no, you're not the best, because you need to know. Anyway, so then we got invited to a different bar. You went home.
Yeah, I was also, I'd hit a wall physically, emotionally, mentally, but I also was not feeling very well. I don't know if I kept asking people. I was like, is your stomach feeling okay? Because like immediately after dinner, I just was like I just did not feel great.
And we did all eat. We did like a family style, so we did all eat the same things. We did
all eat the same things. Yeah, sorry.
Well, no, it's a helpful data point.
But I was not, and I knew we had an early morning flight, and I was just like, I need to bid farewell. So I went back to our Airbnb, but you guys went to the
and I thought everyone was going back, so I was saying bye. I think I was saying bye to Shy, and Michaela was like, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "Oh, I thought we were leaving," and she's like, "I'm not leaving," and I was like, I looked at you, I was like, "Is it okay if I stay?"
I was like, "Please, by all means."
I wasn't ready to be done.
No, you weren't.
I was willing if the group was done, but like, I'm not gonna stay all by myself. But so we went to, I think, Whiskey River.
Okay.
Not totally sure, so don't quote me on that. But we met Sarah, and Zoe had left. Zoe's team, I think, had gotten a table at that bar, and she'd invited us to go. So we went there. That DJ knew exactly what he was doing.
Good.
Yes. Very grateful for that. So Sarah, Freya, Michaela, Molly, myself, and obviously Zoe was there. Great time. At one point, it just starts pouring rain. And it was the best.
I bet.
Because I just couldn't care less. Yes. At this point, my hair is up in a bun. Like, it was weird because when we first got to the top of the stairs, and this, like, if we didn't have a table, this place, I would have just decided to go home. It was like shoulder to shoulder. Someone shoved me the minute we walked in. And of course, then all these other people think I'm shoving them. And I'm just like, I'm so, you kind of put your arms up and you're just like, I'm sorry, it's not me. So anyway, but it had started to pour rain as we started to get out to the rooftop. So a bunch of people are trying to get in. And I was just like, I can't be in this space. I'd rather be in the rain than in this room with these people. So the rain was kind of off and on, but the DJ was great. We had so much fun. Good. And then we finally got home. I don't remember what time. Maybe like, what time did you get home?
We got back maybe around 1:30.
Okay. So we were definitely later than that. I maybe 2:33.
Okay.
And I thought I had set an alarm. I did not. And at that point, our flight was delayed. I kind of just woke up because I heard you, thank goodness. And mostly we had packed like the day before, like all my stuff was at least mostly together. But this starts the journey of our return home.
Yeah. Cause I woke up, I set my alarm for 6 and I wake up and I see that I have a text that our flight has been delayed. So I'm like, okay. So I set my alarm then for like 6:45 and then I get up and you got up and I think you had said something and I was like, well, Hannah, we wouldn't like, our flight. I think I was like, our flight's delayed. And you were like, what? And I was like, well, yeah, we wouldn't be here right now. Cause it was like 7:15.
Yeah.
Like, well, we wouldn't be here right now if our flight was on time. And, but it was like, we were going to, if everything went according to plan, we were going to be okay. But things didn't go according to plan.
They didn't. Yeah. And I was just exhausted and out of it. And luckily I didn't feel like super sick. I was just like, I didn't feel hungover. I was just like really tired. So I was very like out of it when I woke up, and I was just like, her flight's delayed. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway. So so we get to the airport, and it's not too bad. Like it's not as crowded as I was expecting it to be, which was nice. Michaela, bless her, literally went from like, we got home from the bar. Michaela got in the shower, got dressed, and went to the airport. That's how early her flight was. Horrible. But she made it home immediately with no issues. So that's great. So we get boarded. Then we're sitting on the plane for a little while, and it's just kind of like, okay, what's going on? And the pilot comes on and he says that they're finishing up their checklist. It should be 5 to 7 minutes. And longer than 5 to 7 minutes later, we're still sitting there, and there's no more communication, which does irritate me because I just find that to be annoying. And at this point, most people on the plane have a tight connection in Atlanta. And Atlanta, as if anyone's ever traveled through there, you know how hit and miss it can be. So it was, anyway, we're leaving late. And at that point, we're pretty sure we're going to miss our connection. Mm-hmm. I think it was like an hour and a half-ish connection to begin with. So we already lost time from the first delay, and then being on the tarmac, we got pushed even further. Turbulence and me are not friends. It was bumpier than I would have preferred. Actually, during one of the worst parts of it, Zoe got up to go to the bathroom. She came back looking calm as a cucumber. Meanwhile, I'm like trying to I just get really like out of body and panicky. And so I just end up kind of just trying to find yeah. And the guy, there was a couple next to me, and the guy was so nice. He's like, if you need to like hold on to my arm or something, like that's nice, fine. Man. I was like, that's really nice. I was like, I'm sorry. I know I look like a ball of panic over here, but
yeah, I was sitting because I am on the toilet, like as it was going down. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I think for me, I used to freak out about turbulence, but I also then I've like gotten to the place of like, I have zero, and I think this is how I've just been in life in general as I've gotten older. Like I have zero control over this situation. So it's like, it's not me worrying is not going to like magically get us out of turbulence
of course
or whatever. So I feel like I've managed to get to that place. So I'm not as anxious about it, but I know it's obviously easier said than done.
Yeah. I hope I can get there one day, but my nervous system hasn't caught up with the logic of like, this is not an unsafe thing to be happening.
And I feel like people followed this journey also on Instagram, so it's like we don't need to relive all the torture, but essentially we missed our flight. Like
our connection flight was taxiing the same moment we landed.
Yeah, we tried to get onto the next flight that was leaving like an hour and a half later standby. We don't get onto that flight. We thankfully do get confirmed for a flight that was leaving at like 9:50 or something, but they basically said you can try to get on standby on all the other flights leading up to that flight, and you can try to get out of there if you want. And so we, bought some time at the Sky Club, which was fine. And kind of I was very tired and delirious basically at that point. I had to do a bit of work, but we managed to get onto that 7:30. Well, it was delayed, but ended up being like an 8:30 flight.
Yeah. I mean, the joy we felt.
So happy.
Because we're looking at the boards to see if we'll get a seat assignment. And all of a sudden, and it's just so redundant. You're like, oh, still don't have one. But all of a sudden I look and I'm like, oh my God, my name has a seat with it. And Zoe goes, mine does too. And I was like, we made a real scene. Like we stood up and we were just like, yes. Which actually I looked the next morning. The flight we were supposed to go out on did go out at 12:50 p.m.
Rough.
I would have cried. We would have been so over it by then. So okay. Thank goodness for that. But it was a delightful time. So fun. And like I said, I think for me, like one of the biggest highlights, like obviously the grid walk was amazing. Seeing some of the drivers was so cool, and like getting to experience it was awesome. But I think being able to meet so many creators that we've sort of known on the periphery that we didn't realize we were going to get to meet, and just being able to like not only just kind of see each other and do content and stuff, but to be able to like over dinner, like talk about everything and kind of get to know one another more, and just kind of pick each other's brains about this weird space that we're all in. And it was just nice.
Yeah. Cause I feel like you and I talk about this a lot. Like we're so consumed with F1 and motorsport in general, like all the time. It's kind of like the only thing that I guess I should speak for myself, but like it's oftentimes the only thing that I'm really like thinking about, or like that's newsworthy that and there's very, very few people in my life who get that. Like you obviously do. And like my parents do. And some of our friends like sort of are half in, half out, like understand it to some level, but aren't like invested.
Yeah.
And so to be around a bunch of other people, a bunch of other women who are just as invested, if not more invested than we are, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, like I don't feel so, I don't know, out of place or whatever. It feels nice to be around other people who like understand and also who just like on a very basic level, just like get your references.
Yeah.
Like, just like when you're talking about certain, I don't know, people or drivers or whatever, it's just like, they get what you're talking about.
Yeah, you don't have to give any context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
So it's just,
and we got to teach them some of our things, references, like my latte.
We did.
So anyway, it was really a great time. Had a blast. Yeah. So now we're gonna pivot into, again, like I mentioned, some of the questions that Zoe put up a question box, and most of the questions were just like, can you tell us about IndyCar? So we're going to get into that. But one question that I did like that was, I actually did think about this, is, was there a driver whose height shocked you, like seeing them in real life? And I will say, Joseph Newgarden is not short by any means, but I think he's six foot tall. 6 feet tall. Grammar. But he seems taller, and I think most people seem like they're taller on camera, maybe, but and again, he's not short, and by driver standards, he's much taller than a lot of the drivers, but I kind of thought he was going to be towering more than he was, but still looks good. So okay, so IndyCar 101. First, just kind of wanted to give a highlight for anyone who's never watched IndyCar and has maybe obviously is watching Formula One or has at least watched Drive to Survive. There are some drivers who were in Formula One and also featured on Drive to Survive that are now in IndyCar. So Marcus Ericsson drives for Chip Ganassi, and Romain Grosjean drives for Andretti. Nice. And then Fernando Alonso is obviously still in F1. He has driven in the IndyCar 500 a few times, but I don't think he was ever a formal IndyCar, like a permanent IndyCar team driver. Yeah. But yeah, fun fact there. Oh, and then you said Alexander Rossi has driven in F1 for McLaren a few times. I don't know if it was I can't remember who it was for. I don't think it was for McLaren, but yeah, he did like a handful of races many years ago. Okay. Yeah. So there's that. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about differences between F1 and IndyCar. So one of the differences is when it comes to the tracks. So as most people know, in F1, there's the road courses, which is just kind of your standard like track course, like Coda, Silverstone, like all the things. And then street tracks like Miami, Vegas, Monaco, etc. Yes. IndyCar has road courses and street courses, but the thing that they have that F1 doesn't is they also do ovals. So I don't know how many races out of their calendar are ovals, but like the IndyCar 500 is an oval race. And there are some drivers who do not, like IndyCar drivers who won't drive oval races. I don't understand how or why that works. So we can do that maybe on another episode, or you can Google that. But I do know that that's a thing, because like I was watching the Indy 500 a little bit this year, and like Marcus Armstrong wasn't racing because he does not do ovals, but I cannot tell you why, because I literally don't know. Well, I think it's also because for a lot of these drivers, like I think Roman didn't do ovals his first season in IndyCar, and oftentimes it's for the drivers that, like, for example, Marcus Armstrong came in from F2 last year who had never done ovals before. Like it's like an introductory almost season into IndyCar. And they obviously can't contend for the championship if they're not racing in all the different races. But that's not really what they're aiming for. They're aiming for just like experience in IndyCar, what they're comfortable with, and then maybe down the line they will then introduce the ovals into their calendar. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, the cars themselves. So obviously they're both open wheel cars. The F1 kind of focus is like the engineering excellence of the cars and the teams, and they have much larger budgets. IndyCar puts more of a priority on like equal playing field, and so they have more of a spec car and they have lower budgets for their seasons. So the chassis in F1, like they're building their own chassis, whereas in IndyCar they're given one basically. So the chassis are manufactured by Dallara, and then obviously there's just a lot more development. So they have different engine providers in F1, and they're also just changing a lot about their car throughout the year based on budgets, and they can kind of do what they want because they're more of a constructor series. Well, they are a constructor series compared to IndyCar. So IndyCar, the spec pieces are the chassis, the tires, the aero kit. You can choose between one of two engine providers, so they use Chevy and Honda. And then the machines themselves stay mostly the same. And then the focus is really understanding the setup of the car and how best to set up the car for the demands of each track and the drivers. And then the other differences about the car is, I guess, IndyCar allows you can have unlimited wind tunnel testing. Now, obviously, there's a budget component to that. Even though it's technically unlimited, there's going to be some teams who can't just like throw in any idea into a wind tunnel. But I was listening to the Lakeside Drive episode that Freya did with Ash Vandelay, and Ash was kind of talking about how, like, even though you can have unlimited wind tunnel time, there's some respect there and some understanding that like they try and make it as equal as possible. And I think that's more just like the team to team respect level, which is nice. But then the other difference is in IndyCar, they have an aero screen, which is it's like their version of the Halo a little bit, but it's more with like what that windshield is. But it's a titanium frame with ballistic material windshield, and it helps protect the drivers from debris and then also enhances safety during incidents. The liveries. I will say this is probably for me one of the hardest things to kind of wrap my mind around, because being so familiar with Formula One, there's obviously 10 teams, 2 drivers each, and the cars of each team have to be presented in the same livery and same suit. So obviously on a race day, Mercedes is going to match, Ferrari's going to match. You're going to know where the 2 Ferraris are.
Even if they change, even if they have a temporary livery, it's still the same.
Yeah. And with IndyCar, couple of things. One, the grid sizes can vary from like 20 people to as many as 33 people in a race. I think the higher numbers are like Indy 500 and stuff. And again, I've done like some research, and I might be getting some things wrong, so please just have some grace. And if I've messed something up, let me know.
Kindly.
Yes. And then, but the biggest thing is that like the teams don't have to present in the same livery and are often like, they're often different. So like Team Penske is Scott McLaughlin, Joseph Newgarden, and Will Power, and their cars don't often look the same. I don't know if they ever look the same. But even from race to race, they can change. So it can get a little confusing because like I know in the Indy 500, Joseph's car was like primarily like a shell-based branded car, was like red and white and yellow, and he was in a red, white, yellow suit. And then when we saw his car, is it PNG? Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
So again, it obviously, as you get more used to watching it, you can get more familiar with just paying attention to their numbers, because obviously their numbers don't change, but that can be tricky when you're first watching it to understand kind of who teammates are, and then also make sure you're identifying the right driver.
Yeah.
But okay, moving on to the calendar. So F1 calendar is in 2023 is 23 races, and I think next year it's gonna be 24, and it's global, whereas IndyCar is 17 races, which is pretty standard. I think there was one year that they had 16 races because of a COVID cancellation for a race in Canada, but typically 17 races, and they only race in North America as of right now, so that's great. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot. No, so if you have anything, feel free to. Qualifying. So most of you here know how F1 qualifying works, but just real quick, there's 3 sessions: Q1, Q2, Q3. They're 18-minute sessions. The 5 slowest are out in Q1, and then the next 5 slowest are out in Q2, and then the time results of Q1 set the top 10 of the grid, and then the bottom 10 drivers set the bottom 10 of the grid by time. That's correct, right?
Time results of Q3.
Of Q3.
Yeah.
And then for IndyCar, they have two qualifying types based on what kind of track they're doing. So for a road or street course, they basically split up the drivers into two groups, group 1 and group 2, and then they have 10 minutes of track time per group. The 6 fastest from group 1 and the 6 fastest from group 2 move on into the fast 12, which is, I guess, could technically be considered what Q3 is ish. Not really.
Kind of Q2.
Q2, right? Okay, yeah. You're right. Yeah. And then Q3, quote unquote, is the fastest 12, go another 10 minutes. And then the fastest 6 from the top 12 go another 10 minutes. Am I getting this right? Or am I?
It's 10 minutes, but yes.
Okay, so they go again, and then their time sets the top 6 of the grid, and then the rest of the grid is set by their qualifying time.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different, and I think that can also be a little confusing. Because of the groups. Do you know how the groups are chosen?
It's based off practice.
So that's right. Okay.
Odds. So even group and then odd group.
Okay. So practice is actually also more valuable, or not valuable, but maybe more important in qualifying results than it would be in F1.
Yeah.
Great. Hope that made sense. Also for oval races, the qualifying is actually only one car at a time. So, for IndyCar or for the 500, it's different. I'm just talking about a normal race. But they go one car at a time. They go basically 2 fastest lap, and then their 2-lap average is their qualifying time or speed, and then the grid is set by qualifying speed. Now, if someone gets the same time, I believe it's the first person to get the time.
That's usually how it is in F1 too.
Yeah, but don't quote me on that because it's not on my piece of paper. So team breakdown, obviously, again, we said there's 10 teams in F1 with 20 drivers. In IndyCar, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I could see and find, and I counted a lot of times, but there's 13 teams in IndyCar and there's 36 drivers. So there are teams with more than 2 drivers. Like we said, Penske has that. Chip Ganassi, I think, has 4 or 5.
McLaren has 3.
Yeah. Andretti, I think they have 4.
Yeah.
So the more money you have in IndyCar, the more drivers you can have. Obviously gives you some more flexibility, but I think most teams try to have at least 2 full-time drivers. Okay. How are we doing? Are we doing great?
Yeah.
Great. I'm sorry. I'm not used to being
okay.
the one.
I think, I don't know that we don't have to.
Yeah, I know.
Every single
so I'm just going to do a few more. So the pit stops, I think the main difference that I think is really interesting is F1 pit stops are obviously really fast. Like 2 and 2.5 seconds. Obviously they can be faster or slower depending on the team. Or if you're just going in for tires or if you've had damage or something.
Correct.
But IndyCar, their average is 7 to 9 seconds. And the main reasons for that is that they refuel in IndyCar where they don't refuel in Ferrari. Well, that's true. But also in Formula 1, they don't do refuels. Which is interesting. I think they used to do it in Formula 1, but they stopped because of safety concerns. And then, sometimes you'll see them too. I didn't ever really think about this, even though I've seen it, but they'll kind of spray water on the car after a refuel. And that's obviously to try and make sure there's no, it's a safety thing to make sure there's not extra fuel on the car that could. Okay. I am going to talk about 2 more things. So DRS versus push to pass. So, because this one actually helped me learn because I didn't really understand what push to pass was. So DRS, you can use at any time in the race as long as there's someone within 1 second ahead of you. Is that correct? Yeah. Perfect.
Well, you can use them in DRS zones.
And in DRS zones, right?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just assumed went without saying, but it shouldn't have. And then push to pass is similar. It temporarily increases the engine power of the car. I think they said between 50 to 75 horsepower, and someone smarter than me will know exactly how to explain that to you, but they're not here today. So, but push to pass in IndyCar, depending on the race, they have 150 to 200 seconds of push to pass time, which is kind of nice because if for whatever reason if they start to use it and they realize they're not going to be able to overtake the person, they can stop and then keep those seconds, which I just thought was interesting.
Yeah, and they can also use it to defend as well as to attack. in F1, you can only use DRS unless you're in someone else's DRS zone, can you use it? But if you're not in someone's DRS zone but someone behind you is in your DRS zone, you're basically like a sitting duck.
Yeah.
Whereas with IndyCar, both drivers can use it. And it's also like, it's a strategy thing too, because it's like, do you use it all at the beginning? Do you save it? When do you use it? How much of it do you use? That kind of comes into play, which I think makes it interesting as well.
Yeah. Scoring is quite different. I'm not going to go through all the different points per place, but one thing that I thought was interesting is in IndyCar, everyone gets points. And then whereas in F1, you get a bonus point for fastest lap if you're in the top 10. In IndyCar, you get bonus points. You get 1 point if you're pole position. 1 point is given to a driver for every lap they're in leading position, which I think is interesting because there's a lot of times someone may be able to be leading the race, even though they might not be able to, win the race or finish. They might just finish midfield during the race. And then 2 points goes to the driver who led the most laps of the race, which is also interesting. So it sort of made more sense to me too, because rewatching races or watching the 100 Days to Indy, they're kind of like, how about we lead for a few? And like that feels like a very important piece of it to them. And I didn't really understand why, but there's points involved. So that's nice. Okay. So the last thing I really wanted to talk about is just kind of, a lot of people have questions about access and just like what you can get in IndyCar versus F1. And I think this is I think outside of the racing aspect specifically, it's crazy how different it is. So it's not a like apples to apples comparison, but I compared a COTA 3-day ticket experience with the Firestone GP of Monterey IndyCar race. So if you go to COTA, a 3-day ticket with reserved grandstand seats starts at $590. Starts. I think it's like $590 to like almost $2,000 depending. And I will say, I think the $590 is the face value. And so when it goes up, it might be some resale tickets and stuff. I'm not sure. But in IndyCar for this race that's in Laguna Beach at the end of the season, it's their like final race on the calendar. You can get a 3-day ticket for $180. It includes your general admission and paddock ticket for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Your ticket includes grandstand seating near turn 11 or 4. It is first come, first serve, but you are guaranteed a seat in the grandstand and parking. And children 15 and under can go in free with a paid adult.
Yeah, crazy.
Bonkers.
Yeah, crazy.
I mean, that's like
difference.
The $590 a COTA doesn't even get you any access, no hospitality, no nothing. So to be able to get into the paddock, I mean, $180 isn't nothing. And I don't want to like just say that it's not expensive, because for some people it really can be, and it still doesn't, make sense in your budget. But to just see how different, like the experience you get for so much less money in IndyCar is super interesting.
Yeah, I think also like and the ability, like if you're in the paddock, the ability to just like be around drivers all the time, constantly see people walk by, like just the freedom that you can get right up close to a car. Like when, like, and I always feel like I have to preface whenever I explain it, but when I was in Monaco, like there's like, this big like barrier rope that is like, you can only get so close to the garage, and like there's just all this distance that has to be made, and like it's just so I don't know, like you don't get really any access.
Yeah.
And so then comparing that to just how I mean, we could have gone up and touched cars.
I know. And I do think, and actually this thought just occurred to me, and I'm sure it's kind of like a duh for a lot of people, but because the cars in Formula One are so individualized, I feel like that's a lot of the reason. But there's still, you can still give people access that is better and more accessible, which is a dumb sentence, but without giving away the trade secrets. I feel like there's ways to figure it out.
Yeah. And I also just think too, I mean, I really respect obviously Formula One, and well, obviously I do, but the engineering component of the sport, and how if you mess up that, like you're screwed for your season essentially. But I also really like with IndyCar that there's lots of different people win races, and it's a lot more. There's a bigger even spread of like people that could get on podiums and people that could win races. And I also think there's a lot more action in IndyCar. Like I think there's a lot more there's just more unpredictability with an IndyCar race. And I think Formula One obviously is fantastic and amazing, but I think people don't give, and I'm speaking generally, don't give IndyCar as much credit or as much attention when it's oftentimes like a better viewing experience, again, depending on the season and everything.
Yeah.
They just don't have the glitz and glamour of being Formula One. So if you haven't given IndyCar a chance, I think everybody should give it a shot.
100%. We're going to link a few resources in the description, but a couple things. I got a lot of this information from the Lakeside Drive podcast that I mentioned, hosted by Freya with Ash Vandelay. It's the title of it is the F1 Summer Break Special, IndyCar 101. And then a few other things. I feel like like many of us, the stories of the drivers are very helpful to kind of like get in and get excited about something. So Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin do a YouTube series called Bus Bros. I myself need to dig into it, but I've heard it's amazing and hilarious. 100 Days to Indy, it was on the CW. It's really great. It's kind of done in real time, which I think is cool. I know you can get like a free trial. I think you can watch it through there. I'm not sure how our international fans can watch it. I meant to say friends, but fans works too. And that's great. And then honestly, the IndyCar like website has a ton of really cool resources of like where you can watch it, what the schedule is, obviously tickets. They have some of the rules in another like Indy 101 section. And then the Talk Track podcast, they've started a new segment called In Case You Missed Indy, which is great if you want to kind of stay in the know but aren't ready to commit to a full series, because
yes,
I get
our
that.
friends over at Track Talk do great stuff.
They certainly do. And also Google, because this taught me so much.
Yes.
I didn't know many of these things before I prepped for this episode. So don't be afraid to ask the question and to look it up and to say you don't know what Interlagos is.
Exactly. Yeah. The IndyCar season is a lot shorter than Formula One. So it is coming to an end very soon. But if you can, check it out on TV before it ends, or get yourself to a race if you live close enough to one. Or, if it's too much to handle right now, like maybe start at the beginning of next season. But it's just like another fun thing to have on your calendar. And you're always looking for new things to, fill up our weekends, and great personalities, fun people. Like, I think it's, and there's more people too. And there's drama just like in F1.
There certainly is
craziness. So it's definitely worth your time and your money and fandom.
Amen.
Anything else to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening. Hope this was a fun episode. I know
it's a lot of fact-based, but
well, and a lot of stories, which I never know if people like those things or not, but whatever.
We did.
We did. Yeah, exactly. Hope you're all enjoying your summer break. F1 will be back soon enough. So we'll, have more things to discuss and talk about. But until then,
Enchante.